Tiguan has been somewhat of a chart success for Volkswagen, and since 2007, more than 6 million of them have been produced worldwide. And given this popularity, you can understand why VW wants to continue things on, which is why we've now got this new, revised version of the second generation Tiguan. With a sharper look and a sharper interior too, it hopes to promise more for families that love the older generation cars. But it's absolutely freezing out here, so let's dive in and find out what it's like. The new Tiguan is definitely a sharper affair than before, with redesigned LED headlights and a wider grille, bringing this smaller SUV more into line with its larger Touareg stablemate. The bumpers have been redesigned too, while this R-Line model sits on huge 20-inch alloy wheels for an even more premium look. Around the back, the changes are slightly less noticeable, but the lights have been given a lift, while plenty of chrome continues that high-end feel. Now, the interior of the Tiguan has been given a real boost over the previous generation car. We've got some nice chrome accents which help to lift the overall feeling in here, and this car has an optional panoramic sunroof which does help to brighten the overall feel of the cabin. Now, in the centre we've got a large infotainment system that's available in a range of sizes, but this one in particular is 8 inches, and this is bolstered by a driver's display ahead of you which relays all your key information and is configurable too. We've got some new slightly haptic style buttons on the steering wheel which are a little bit strange and unusual to get used to initially, but you do get up to speed with them quick enough. And then in the centre, nice gear stick and some really large cubby holes too. And this is reiterated with some really deep door bins which are great for large bottles and basically just making sure that the cabin is as clutter free as possible. And we've got a glove box which is actually large enough for a set of gloves. The Tiguan has always been a car with a real focus on practicality, and nowhere is this more evident than in the back. As you can see, I've got loads of legroom and loads of headroom too, which makes it an incredibly comfortable place to be. And in addition, it's a flexible seating area too. All of these seats are on rails, so if you need more boot space, you can push them forward. That's a real benefit for people who might have children in car seats here who don't need as much legroom, but you might need more boot space. So you can just move them forward and there you have it. When it comes to boot space, the Tiguan offers up a very useful 520 litres of standard, though this can be pushed up to 615 litres by sliding those rear seats forward. Fold them down entirely and you end up with a really useful 1,655 litres of space. So what do you want from a family SUV like the Tiguan? Well, you want it to be comfortable, you want it to be easy to drive, and you want it to fit into your day-to-day life with a minimal amount of fuss. And for the most part, the Tiguan does just those things. It's easy to drive, it's got nice light steering. The 1.5 litre petrol engine in this car, though not the brawniest of powertrains, provides more than enough performance for everyday driving. The economy figures that it brings aren't the best. During daily driving we've been seeing around 30 mpg, which for this size of car really isn't that acceptable. As we've already mentioned, if you do want better efficiency results, then we'd hang on for the plug-in hybrid or opt for the diesel, which will, over longer journeys particularly, bring far better economy figures. And it is easy to live with. This isn't a massive car, though it's certainly one of the larger sizes in its segment, and that means that even on tighter roads, it's not a difficult car to pilot. However, when we get onto that question of comfort, things take a slightly different turn. You see, because this car has been fitted with 20-inch alloy wheels as part of the R-Line pack, the ride is extremely choppy. It's almost sports car firm. And that means that when you're driving over unbroken surfaces, which, let's be honest, you find most of the time in the UK, the Tiguan just doesn't feel that comfortable. It really does chop around. You get quite a lot of head toss as the car struggles to meander its way across imperfections in the road, and all in all, it just doesn't deliver the type of experience that you'd expect from a car of this type. Now, if you go to elegance trim, which doesn't bring the same kind of sporty look as R-Line, but still has plenty of standard equipment, you get slightly smaller 19-inch wheels, and I think that would be a real benefit to this car. You could even go smaller. I believe that as standard the car comes on 17s, and I'd be really interested to see how that changes the comfort levels, because I really do think that these 20-inch alloys make such a big difference on the Tiguan's ride that dropping down to a far smaller wheel size would make a real big impact. But the steering is nice and light, and the 7-speed DSG gearbox that we've got in this car is very well attuned to providing the right gear at the right time. Though you can take control, of course, via the paddles on the steering wheel. For the most part, you're going to leave it to its own devices, and it does that perfectly well. As mentioned before, this is a front-wheel drive Tiguan, and on days like today when the temperatures are going well below zero and traction becomes an even greater consideration, that is an area where you would like that added security of four-wheel drive. You do, of course, like in pretty much all VW Group cars, have the option to change the type of driving mode that you're using. Usually I tend to go straight for comfort, but this car also has sport modes and individual modes which allow you to tailor the individual settings of each area of the car to your own individual preference. Move into sport and you do get added weight to the steering and more bite to the throttle, but in truth in a car like this you're going to leave it in its regular modes and it's set up just fine. The Tiguan ticks the boxes when it comes to visibility as well. You've got a nice clear view out of the front through this wide windscreen, and it's not blocked too much by the pillars because they're quite thin too. Now looking out the back, you've got again another wide screen, which means that you've got plenty of visibility straight outwards, and over your shoulder the pillars aren't too thick. There's been plenty of glass integrated in between them, so those don't detract from your visibility when you're looking over your shoulder, such as when you're merging onto a motorway or a dual carriageway. You do get a good sense of robustness from the Tiguan in general. It's got a nice heft to it, and you've got that nice high seating position as well, which is one of the key reasons why so many people are flocking to SUVs, because it's confidence inspiring. You like to sit above and you can see slightly more than you would in a traditional hatchback. Some people might find that strange to get used to in the first instance, but once you're up and running, having that slight elevation is quite pleasant. The other issue with those large wheels is that they generate quite a lot of tyre noise, and that's particularly noticeable over rough surfaces and on the motorway too when you're travelling at higher speeds. And that's a real shame, because otherwise the Tiguan is very quiet indeed. The engine noise has been cleverly isolated from entering the cabin, and there's not a good degree of wind noise either. It's just those tyres that are finding themselves to be shouting in an otherwise quiet space. This latest update has done extremely well to boost the Tiguan's already very strong reputation. It's smarter to look at and it's smarter inside than before, but it hasn't lost that key focus on practicality, which has won it so many fans with so many families. Yes, it does feel quite firm, but if you avoided these 20-inch wheels, we think that could be avoided. If you do want a family-sized SUV that focuses on practicality but doesn't lose that focus on premium feel, then the Tiguan should be firmly on your list. So what do you think? Do you like this Tiguan, or would you go for one of its rivals like the Nissan Qashqai, for instance? Leave us a comment below and tell us what you think. And don't forget to subscribe to the Motors.co.uk channel, hitting that bell icon so you're notified each and every time we upload a new video.